Hello, good evening, everyone. You can unmute your mic to speak. I can't see the chat from my end, but thank you for joining in. So the session will be starting in 3 minutes. I can see we have 5 people here currently. So by 5:03, we would get started. In the meantime, you can just like unmute your mic and introduce yourself. Hello. Can anybody hear me? Hello? I can't see the chat from here. So like you'd have to unmute for me to hear people talking. Oh, your mics are muted. Stop sharing my screen for a minute. Okay, so everyone should be able to speak now. Yeah, good evening,
Yeah.
Oluwatoyinino.
Yes, good evening.
So I did not realize everyone was muted. So this is 5:03 on dots. Let's just get started. I'm sure more people will join in. I'll share my screen back now. Okay. So you can mute yourself now. Thank you. Okay, so good evening, everyone. My name is Alima. I'm a cybersecurity GRC analyst, and I'm a Better Learn Microsoft Student Ambassador. So this 1 hour event or webinar is on data governance and Microsoft Purview. Microsoft Purview is a tool by Microsoft that focuses on data governance, compliance, and stuff like that. So we'll be understanding the capabilities and benefits of Microsoft Purview, practices for implementing a standard data governance framework. Then we would also explore the SA400 certification learning part. That's a certification exam by Microsoft that we'll talk about later in the program. So let's just get started now. I'll start recording and I'll share my slide. Okay. Mm, let's do it. Give me a minute, please. Can you see a prompt that is telling you that the meeting is being recorded? Hello? Does anyone have a prompt telling them the meeting is being recorded?
Yes, I saw
Not
that
yet.
when I joined.
Oh, okay then. So I'll just go on and share my slides now. Okay. So one more time, please confirm if you can see my screen, and we'll just continue. Hello.
Yes, can see your screen.
Okay, perfect. So, like I introduced myself, my name is Alima, and this webinar is on Introduction to Data Governance and Security using Microsoft Purview. So, we'll be discussing about data governance and then eventually linking it to one of Microsoft's data governance solutions called Microsoft Purview. Let's get started. Okay, so what is data governance first? From the applications, I noticed that a lot of people don't seem to have any experience with Microsoft Purview, but some, some are very like eager to learn about this tool created by Microsoft. Before we move on to what data governance is, I want to believe that everybody knows what data is, like unprocessed information, raw information, be it in small quantities or large unprocessed quantity. That's what you call data. And sometimes we use data and information interchangeably. So they usually mean the same thing. You're talking about information, you're talking about details, right? Now, what is data governance? What does it mean to govern this data? Data governance is um, a set of rules, processes, and practices that ensure that high quality data management is enforced within an organization. So it encompasses things like you setting lay down rules. These are the steps we have to follow. These are the way we have to handle this data. This is how we pass it on to people. This is how we share it with people. Anything that concerns how data is being handled, that is data governance. And it is just like stated in the slide here. It establishes accountability and ownership of data, thereby enhancing data quality and enforcing policies for data privacy and security. So when you look at it from a different angle, the end goal for governing data or for documenting how data is being handled is privacy and security, which is not just like the only reasons, because when you take it further down, you discover that this still leads to what we call the foundations or tenets of information security, of securing data, of securing information. That's the CIA triad: confidentiality, integrity, and availability. So the set of rules, processes, and practices that we follow when handling data, that's what you call data governance. And the end goal is usually to ensure and enforce confidentiality of data, integrity of data, making sure it is not changed or altered in unauthorized ways, and the availability of data. It has to be available for those who need it, right? So now, by managing data throughout its life cycle and ensuring compliance with what we call regulations, like preset regulations, data governance supports informed decision-making, improves operational efficiency, and protects sensitive information. Each of these lines would be understood as we move on, like during the event, during the webinar. Because, like I mentioned, it involves a documentation of how data is being handled, right? The whole rules, process, practice that you take, and all of it. That's the that's the handling of data throughout its life cycle, from well, this data or information was created, who handled it, how was it used, and how is it deleted or how is it retained, and things like that. That's the whole life cycle. That's what we call the data life cycle. And you have to ensure that, oh, okay, how we handle this data now is in compliance with certain regulations that we have to follow as an organization. By understanding all of this, like by knowing your data, classifying it, and things like that, it usually helps organizations with a more informed decision-making process, because it is when you know your data, it is when you know, okay, what are we collecting from people? What kind of details are we collecting? What are we using them for? Or how do we use them? That is when you'll be able to make more strategic decisions as an organization, right? And when things are straightforward, structured, documented, that's when the whole process can flow, like what we call operational efficiency and all, and as well as the end goal, which works for we security professionals. That's protection of sensitive information, right? So okay, yes, that is for data governance definition. Now, what are the key components of data governance? we've understood that data governance has to do with the whole process of handling data, right? Policies, sets of rules, practices, and the likes. What are the components of this data governance? First, we have data stewardship, and that has to do with you assigning roles and responsibilities for data ownership. We already established that the end goal is for us to have a structured data to work with while still working towards ensuring confidentiality, integrity, and of course, availability of data. You would agree with me that something that's not structured cannot um cannot achieve that end goal, right? So one of the steps you can take to enforce data governance or to carry out data governance is to assign roles and responsibilities for each data management. And what does this mean? Like, basic example now. So let's say for a registration form, okay, an event is meant to happen. There are team of people handling it. You have the events and workshop registration team. You have the speaker team, sponsorship team, branding and design and things like that. For those who will be collecting data from individuals, right, or from registrants for this particular event, they are the first sets handling the data from the beginning of its life cycle. The registration details you are collecting, like applicant's name, their email address, and things like that, those are the data collection at the beginning of its life cycle. So you can say that the first person handling this part of data, right, are those in the registration team. Now, let's say you need to send out reminder emails and maybe offers before the event to these applicants. That data will be moved from the registration team to probably the social media and outreach team, right? Where they would have to handle, okay, compiling an email list, sending it to them and things like that. And if there's any other thing that requires data collected from registrants, probably those interested in speaker roles, those interested in working as volunteers from the same form. You move it on to the next set of people who is handling that, right? That's a proper documentation of data accountability, data ownership, and it helps to ensure accountability that way. You can know, oh, okay, who handled data at what point, and it was not just all scattered and the likes, right? Now, data, this whole concept, like I try to paint now, is what we refer to as data stewardship. And data stewards are responsible for managing data assets, ensuring data quality, and enforcing data governance policies too. We would move on to like explaining what we actually mean by data governance policies that you can set for various data types, actually. So another component of data governance that we have are data policies and standards. Now, for every organization, whether big or small, it does not matter. So far you're handling data, you have to think of how to govern your data with it, right? Now, development and enforcement of policies, standards, and procedures, they're also necessary for you to have a kind of structured data flow. Now, policies, what are they? In basic terms, policies are like documents you create that just store how data is collected, how it is stored, how it is processed, how it is used. Like a kind of outline telling people, like, let's use our event scenario now back. That's very small scale compared to what you do in large organizations, but I'm just trying to bring it to same level since we have like most of our registrants, like attendees of this event now, are beginners, right? So if they were to draft a policy beforehand, what it will be stating is, okay, you are meant to collect users' data using a form, right? Let them know that their data would be used for so and so, and we must not use it beyond so and so. Like, okay, your data is collected just for the purpose of this event. Please consent, blah, blah, blah. And if you intend to use it for advertisement or sharing with partners, you state it there and let them know right there in the form. Now, how is it stored? Okay, we are not just storing it. We are not just storing the data we collected from the registration form on a computer system that is unencrypted. We're not just storing it on maybe someone's mobile device that is easily accessible to anybody, right? These are people's private information that we're talking about. Okay, so the policy will outline it that data must be collected in so and so format. It must be clearly stated that this is what you intend to use it for. If you intend to use it otherwise, seek people's consent right there on the form and ensure that they agree to it before you use it. If they don't agree to it, do not use their data for unintended means, right? How do we store the data? Data is to be stored in so and so manner. How would it be processed? Okay, data would likely be it will likely be used for tracking the number of applicants that we have to be able to make provision for things to get for the event. How will it be used? Then after handling it at the registration team angle, we might have to like send it to those in charge of outreach and social media, not social media, outreach and email marketing or something. Yeah, email marketing. Those that usually have to send mails out, reminder for events and things like that before moving on to like the whole chain of custody of the data and all is properly documented way before the data is collected so that everyone on the team, whether technical or non-technical, understands that, oh, okay, so this is what we intend to do with the data. This is how we intend to collect it. This is how we intend to store it and things like that. If you have standards that you have to follow in GRC, information security related, or not, because there are some business ones too that we have. But in GRC, we have what we call the ISO 27000 family of standards, where you have a whole bunch of different standards that you can use as a guide as an organization when handling data, right? If you're talking about like the ISO 27001, for instance, now, you have guides already there for you, like, okay, clause 1, you have to ensure that this is taken into consideration. Clause 2, clause 3, I think we have up to clause 10, the recently updated ISO 27001 version. So while this is not telling you this is exactly how you have to do what you have to do, but it still serves as a kind of guide. And then you will now be the one to know, oh, okay, so this is how we intend to take it on. This is how we intend to process it. This is how we intend to apply it, right? Like follow this standard as a guide. So all of those things are still under data governance. You creating policy documents, following standards, following procedures for data management and handling too. And that's under the data policies and standards component of data governance. So before we move on to data privacy and security, let me check. Okay. All right. So the third component of data governance, we have data privacy and security. Now, this is bringing us close to our home base already, right? Data security aspect. Now, data governance does not just cover you creating the policies to work with and then following ISMS standards and things like that. You personally, like on your own, you would still have to, like, it's just like I explained, the standards will not tell you this is how you have to do it. You follow them as guide, and then within, depending on your organization's sector or your assets, the kind of data that you have and things like that, that's when you now know, okay, these are the measures that we can put in place to ensure compliance, to enforce data governance, right? Data privacy and security, implementing measures to protect sensitive data and ensure compliance with privacy laws and regulations such as GDPR, CCPA, and HIPAA. This includes data encryption, access controls, audit trails, and several other stuff that we'll still be discussing about. So whatever measure that you choose to implement to enforce that data privacy and security, be it you following a standard or just doing it as a usual data governance routine for your organization, you pair it with, okay, what privacy laws do we have to follow? What regulations do we have to follow? What standards can we use as a guide, right? And then you use that to work towards ensuring data privacy and security. The data you are collecting from people, how secure are they? How accessible are they? And do we have audit trails to be able to like pull us to check? Because anybody can fall out of line at times, maybe intentionally or unintentionally, not following standard guidelines, or sharing information they are not supposed to and things like that, intentionally or unintentionally. So they really like need for audit trails to be like, oh, okay, so how did you do this? Did you do this? Did you actually implement this? Was your organization this compliant? And things like that, right? So data privacy and security. How do you encrypt your data? How do you limit access to such data? And how prepared are you for audit trails too? Like how regularly do you carry out audits? Now, our fourth component of data governance, we have the data lifecycle management. So we've discussed stewardship, policies and standards, privacy and security. Now, for a data lifecycle management, like I mentioned, from the moment a data is created, just like our registration form in our example, the lifecycle for that data has started, right? It has been created. That's the beginning of the data's life cycle. Now, it is your responsibility as maybe a data security architect or a data governance, analyst or something for an organization now to ensure that data is properly managed and handled throughout its life cycle within the organization. So you have to have processes outlined already for, okay, how you intend to handle this data from its creation and acquisition to archiving and deletion. That's when you have to be talking about things like retention policy, deletion, and things like that. So I'll also discuss extensively about this particular lifecycle management aspect. But it ensures that data is properly maintained, it is updated and disposed of according to established policies. You know, this terms and conditions stuff that we do read when you are signing up for maybe a service or software or application, things like that long stuff that nobody reads, right? So most of the time, because organizations are required to actually do it, they state how long your data is being kept for, what your data is used for, some of them, and who they share it with. So they are mandated to actually share things like that with you, like the users. And you can actually sue organizations if they hold your data in for longer than when the retention policy is meant to be. Now, going back to our very small scale example of an event registration, if in the registration form it was stated that, okay, your data would only be used for the purpose of this event, right? And sorry, and you did not tick the checkbox that you want to keep receiving marketing emails from them and things like that. The retention policy is, the retention time frame for them keeping your data that way is from, okay, that registration period to the end of the event. Once the event has ended, they have no business holding your data or making use of it. If you now found out that, okay, you still keep receiving like marketing emails from them, or some even like share your data with a totally different partner or event organizer that you did not sign up for, then you can actually go ahead and sue them that way, because they were not meant to make use of your data in that way. And according to the policy they stated at the very beginning, or should we say instruction this time around, they were not meant to use your data in that way. They were not meant to still have it after the event, right? So that's why it is mandatory for organizations to have established policies clearly stating their data lifecycle management. The fifth and I think the final one I wrote, yes, the final component of data governance is compliance and audits. We already briefly mentioned audits in component number 3 under data privacy and security. Now, compliance and audits, you have to ensure that the way you handle your data complies with relevant laws, regulations, and industry standards. And this depends on the sector your organization is in and the location the organization is in. Different locations have different laws and regulations that they put in place or that they set, right? And like for instance, now the way we have GDPR in the EU, we have our own Nigeria data protection regulation here in Nigeria. And although when you compare them, they have similar regulation, like they have similar regulations that you have to, similar instructions that you have to follow for both, but there are still minor differences between them. So a company based here in Nigeria, they have to follow NDPR rules for them to operate, as well as the same way it works for EPA now, that's for hospitals in the US, right? A financial company has no business has no business trying to follow HIPAA regulations. Why? Because they don't work in the hospital sector, they don't work in the medical sector, right? Now, understanding all of this, understanding, okay, what kind of regulations apply to my organization, what kind of laws do we have to follow, what industry standards actually apply to us that we can follow and make use of. It will better like help you to be able to create data governance policies. And because I said it is location based, that does not mean, okay, because I'm in Nigeria now, I cannot follow a standard that did not originate from Nigeria. No. Like the ISO 27000 family now, it's not as if a particular organization or um a particular organization or company or something in Nigeria originated it. So it's actually a worldwide accepted standard by the International Standard Organization, ISO. I think that's the full meaning. Yeah, ISO, and it is like widely followed and a widely accepted standard. All of the standards within the family, ISO 27000 family. Okay, so we've talked about data stewardship that has to do with assigning roles and responsibilities for data handling and management, data policies and standards that guides every data handler or user on how the data is collected, stored, processed, and used, data privacy and security that ensures that every security measure that you can think of or that is applicable is put in place to protect sensitive data and to ensure compliance with privacy laws and regulations. Then data lifecycle management, which has to do with the proper documentation and um, maintenance of data right from its creation to deletion. The fifth component of data governance, we have the compliance and audit that ensures that data management practices comply with relevant laws, regulations, and industry standards. So that's it for key component of data governance. The next thing we have is benefits of data governance. Does anybody have a question on the key components before we move on to the benefits? Hello? Any questions on the components of data governance? Okay, I guess there is none. So moving on to the benefits of data governance, we are, was this Microsoft? Okay, so I guess everyone can still hear me then. So moving on to the benefits of data governance, we have regulatory compliance. Data governance processes helps organizations comply with different data protection regulations, just like we mentioned earlier. And why is it that organizations have to follow? Why is it mandatory for them to follow these data privacy regulations and laws applicable to them? It's because if they don't, there are legal and financial penalties involved. Some of them usually have to pay fines, and sometimes it might get as worse as them being closed down because they don't meet up to the standard that they are supposed to follow. Like, I mean, in terms of following data protection regulations and things like that. So by maintaining a standard data governance process, you can stay away from, you can avoid legal and financial penalties to an extent. Now we have data privacy protection as a benefit of data governance. We already mentioned that also. The end goal is enforcing confidentiality, integrity, and data availability, right? So in order for you to be able to enforce all of this, you have to put in protection measures. You have to have protection measures in place. And yeah, data governance strategies, some of them, like when you have your what data loss prevention methods, encryption, and things like that, like access control too. It can help you to protect sensitive data from unauthorized access or breaches, and that reduces the risk of data loss and theft. It reduces the risk of gaining unauthorized access to confidential data too. The third one, operational efficiency. I think I explained this in the first slide. So Data governance strategies, they help you to streamline your data management process. Why? Like everything is structured and straightforward already. You are working with structured data, with adequate documentation and an audit trail, right? So this makes data management processes easier for you to handle. It reduces redundancy too. There is no unwanted repetition of data or scattered and unstructured data. And all of this improves the overall efficiency of data handling, because when you know who is handling what, although the first step usually is identifying what your data is. When you first know that, oh, okay, so these are the things we are collecting from people. These are the data that we handle and manage first. Then, okay, then you classify them, probably based on sensitivity types and the likes. And after then, working with it and assigning roles, just like we talked about in the component aspect, it just like makes everything easier to work with, right? It makes it more structured. Now, the fourth benefit of data governance that I have here is increased accountability. Oh, yeah. Just like I just mentioned, having all of this in place, it's like having a clearly defined role and responsibility for data management. That ensures that data is properly governed and maintained. You know who is with what, you know what each and every person is doing and handling. Now, improved data access and sharing, facilitating authorized access and sharing of data across the organization. Yes, for organizations that make use of M365, the business plan, not personal, you can choose who has access to what data. It's also a data governance strategy, like that you can make use of for organizations subscribed to Microsoft 365 now. So you can choose who can read what, who can access what data, as well as how long they can access it. So the data retention, you can just say the data retention time rate for this particular probably official email that I'm sending or file that I'm sharing with this person should be from this time to this time. After this particular date, delete it from their inbox or limit their access to it, make it inaccessible for them to be able to access it. Now, audit and compliance trail. Okay, I mentioned that earlier, but then having clearly defined and structured data management strategies provides a clear audit trail for data management and use. So we've talked about the components of data governance, the benefits of data governance, where you have it helps organizations with regulatory compliance. It helps you in protecting your data privacy protection, operational efficiency too, increased accountability. Like there is no chance for repudiation. Someone cannot send something and then say that, oh, I was not the one that sent it, or I never handled that data, or it was not with me. You understand? Because there's clearly defined roles and responsibilities for everybody. And there is this kind of like trail, document trail that you usually have if data governance is well implemented. So you can know who was with who handled what, who created what, non-repudiation and increased accountability. That's it. So talking about improved data access and sharing, how organizations can limit who has access to what document and how long they can have access to it. Then audit and compliance rule too, like we already explained earlier. Now, moving on to types of data governance, we are slowly moving on to the tool that we'll be discussing about or basing all our explanations on. Now, examples of data governance solutions. We have Microsoft Purview by Microsoft, which we'll be talking about today. We have Alation Data Log by Alation, IBM InfoSphere Data Governance, Oracle Enterprise Data. There are a lot of data governance solutions that organizations can make use of. Like they usually just provide a kind of unified platform for you to be able to manage all of your data. You can, okay, after identifying your data, you can classify your data based on sensitive information types. You can limit who has access to what. You can choose what to share with, okay, maybe a small group of people, a larger group of people. Then who can view those kind of documents also. And okay, these are just all of them. But we'll be talking about Microsoft Purview. Now, does anybody have an idea or previous experience with Microsoft Purview? You can just unmute your mic and speak what you think it's about and what it is. Hello. Anyone can unmute and speak. Hello. You can just try. You don't have to have like worked with it before. Just from our explanations of data governance. Unmute and speak what you think like Microsoft Purview is all about and what it does. Can anybody hear me?
Yes, good evening.
Good evening.
Yes, good evening, everyone. I have never worked with Microsoft Purview before, but I can imagine that um, it would make data classification and all of the other data governance operations easier. Automation of those automation of data governance operations.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's great. Thank you, Oluwatomininu. Would anybody else like to go or should we continue now? Okay, nobody else. So Microsoft Purview. Not a lot of people are aware of these tools, except those who are with Microsoft over the whole like name change and things like that. It's a data governance solution, and like, what does that mean? As data security architects or administrators, it means that it can help you to automatically protect sensitive information from risky and unauthorized access, like across every applications that you are using as an enterprise organization. Now, it covers Microsoft 365 applications, Azure, if you have other cloud services or external applications also. All you have to do is unify everything in Purview as a data source, right? And you can monitor each of them. You can set sensitive information types for them. You can set data loss prevention solution. You can set data loss prevention rules for them, as well as other different like security implementations that you can make use of. So let's read through. Microsoft Purview is a data governance solution by Microsoft used for managing and securing data across various environments. It integrates seamlessly with Microsoft 365, Azure, and other cloud. Azure is Microsoft cloud service, by the way, for those who are not familiar with it, and other cloud services to provide data governance and security capabilities. So the thing is, Microsoft Purview can integrate with anything that data is stored on, be it an application or a service that you are running, cloud service or on-premise service, endpoint, that's like devices that you make use of. If your data is stored on other devices, so far if you want to monitor that data, you can bring it in on Purview as a data source and monitor it, set rules and policies for it and the likes. So data governance and security administrators use this tool to help their organization achieve their data governance and security goals. Right. What's the next? Okay, what can I do with Microsoft Purview? Yeah, well, before then, to access Microsoft Purview, I should have included this slide. The URL to use is compliance.microsoft.com. Maybe I'll just leave that in the chat. Compliance.microsoft. Okay, you've used Azure. Not sure if it works like Purview. Oh, well, the thing is, Purview is also a kind of like resource that you can make use of on Azure. But the only thing to it is, I'm coming, compliance.microsoft.com. Yes, that's the URL to access Microsoft Purview. Now, but the only thing attached is that Microsoft Purview, like most of Microsoft's security tools, can only be accessed and used when you are making use of a Microsoft 365 enterprise subscription. If you have Microsoft 365, but it is a personal account, you won't be able to make use of it. Except you are using 365 E5 subscription to be exact. Or you have a developer's account. That was before Microsoft discontinued it. Quite a lot of people still have Microsoft developers account, 365 developers account. So for those who have that, they can access Microsoft Purview from this end as an administrator. Oh, it's not even showing as a link. They can access it like this as an administrator, or okay, they can access as an administrator when you have, sorry, I lost my train of. Can access as administrator when you have a developer's account or Microsoft E5 subscription account. Now, even if it is the developer account you have, you can create what we call tenants to allow other people to also be able to make use of Purview under your account. So like you are the tenant provider. It does not conflict with your own use of it. It does not conflict with their own use of it. But Microsoft discontinued the developers 365 subscription. So the best bet that someone have currently, like to be able to make use of it, is to make use of an E5 enterprise subscription. Okay, so what can I do with Microsoft Purview? And the great thing about this is, like, unlike some other aspect of this cybersecurity, I would say, or data generally, where you have to have a truckload of experience and practical methods for you to be able to secure jobs that allows you to use Microsoft Purview. For this particular aspect, like data security with Purview, you just have to understand like security principles and how all of this works theoretically. But it is when you get to the organization, like when you are employed, that you can actually get to work on live projects. Because you're saying you want to practice using them on your own, you'd have to deal with having things like data sources, consolidated data sources brought together for you to monitor from, set policies and the likes for. And I wanted to mention something. Okay, I'll probably remember as I move on. But let's continue. What can you do with Microsoft Purview? First, data discovery and classification. On Microsoft Purview, you can carry out automatic scans and classification of data across your organization. Like I explained, after identifying what your data is, you have to classify them for easy use. Now, this data discovery and classification helps you in identifying sensitive information that you have or that you are handling in your organization and applying appropriate protection measures. For example, organizations can classify their data as personal, confidential, or public and apply relevant security policies. This can apply to data that is being shared within the organization or outside the organization. So if you're sharing a file with someone and you work in an organization that has Microsoft Purview, like data governance solution activated, there's an administrator and all, you usually be mandated to add a tag. This particular data or this particular email or file that I am sharing, what tag do I want to assign to it? Is it meant to be a personal resource? Is it meant to be confidential, or is it publicly accessible to everyone? And the reason why you would be able to take this is because the data security administrator has applied relevant security policies to it. So like it is mandatory for everybody sending data or sending any form of information, file, resource within and outside the organization to label it for easy classification. And this is only for like organizations that actually have it set. It is not a kind of default setting that you just have that comes with it, right? Another category or component that we have for Microsoft Purview is data catalog, right? Centralization of catalog for easier data discovery and management. This is still like from the administrator's end also. And oh yeah, I remember now. And another thing is with things like this, you might have the broader sense of cybersecurity GRC or being a data analyst and related things like that. But what you want to do is niche down to become a solution provider. And the thing is, for job roles like this, it's usually scarce to find people filled in such kind of roles, right? Because you see everyone going for the bigger picture, cybersecurity GRC roles and things like that. But you have roles like identity and access management, data security administrator, that actually requires people to fill them in, but you don't have much people in those aspects of it. And I can say that so far, like that I've seen, Microsoft is the only provider that provides this like extensive use of of security capabilities and applications, like everything integrated into each other. So when you wonder why is it that some organizations, it is this Microsoft Teams that they are making use of, it's because the subscription that they are using, like with Microsoft, it allows them to be able to do so many things at the same time. Like you have applications that you can make use of under your subscription. You can have a community, that's Microsoft Teams, and then the use of a dedicated platform for webinars, conferences, and the likes, which is why they have to use Microsoft Teams. Then this also, tools like Microsoft Purview, Microsoft Defender, security tools like this. Let's not even go into the cloud tools like Azure and the likes yet. But for Microsoft Purview and other security tools, it allows you to like bring all the data that you have together, and then organizations can monitor their data, catalog them, classify them, assign roles and responsibilities to each and every person, and several other things. Like most of the top sectors that we have, especially here in Nigeria, you see that it is this Microsoft 365 that they use. Educational institutions, that's what they use to assign students emails and the likes. Even oil companies, banks particularly, and the likes. Microsoft 365 Enterprise subscription is the one that provides them with almost all of the tools that they need. Identity and access management for staffs. That's where you have your assigning of email addresses, roles and responsibilities, and things like that. Microsoft Azure, for them to be able to deploy like website and the likes to the cloud. Security tools too, like Entra, Microsoft Purview, Intune for endpoints, Microsoft Defender. That's different from Windows Defender that you have on your computer system, by the way. But okay, let's move on. Yes. We've mentioned data discovery and classification. We've mentioned data catalog, which has to do with the centralization of catalog for easier data discovery and management, for users to be able to find and understand data sets like quickly. So if as an employee at an organization now, I'm looking for something that has to do with, let's say, a file that is titled financial records. Probably I work in the finance department, right? Financial records. By running a quick search within the organization, there is something called like SharePoint, another product of Microsoft, that allows organizations to have this kind of dedicated mini database for the organization, something like that, where you can access every form of files and things that you are allowed to access, right? So if data is properly cataloged using Microsoft Purview, it can enable users like me in the finance sector now trying to look for financial records of maybe a particular client that I'm dealing with. It allows me to easily access it. Why? Because data was already cataloged and identified like properly. So a data catalog, for example, data catalog that lists all data assets with metadata descriptions helps users locate the needed information efficiently. Like the financial record that I need now, the only reason why I'll be able to find it when I search for it in probably the organization's SharePoint is because it was properly identified with metadata descriptions that align with the search query that I'm putting in. Whatever I'm saying, financial record, there's probably a metadata description that has to do with, okay, that's same finance record and things like that. That brings it out. And I'll be able to access it if it is something I am meant to access. The third component of Microsoft Purview I have here is risk and compliance management. So you have provision of various tools on, I'll show the compliance portal soon, like the Purview portal, but let's go over the theories first. So you have provision of different tools on Microsoft Purview that helps you to manage compliance with regulations like GDPR, IPA, ISO 27001, and the likes. All you have to do is, after bringing your data together, identifying them, classifying them, and the likes, you set in policies that helps you to maintain compliance with this set of regulations. There's actually like drop downs where you can select, oh, okay, so working with GDPR, this is what you're trying to like work towards, and the likes. Actually, it is even much easier now with the introduction of copilots, Microsoft copilots, right? That as a kind of assistant within the organization. So you can just be like, okay, this is what you're trying to like set policies for. This is what you're trying to comply with. This is the standard you are trying to adhere to as an organization. And that really helps with conducting risk assessments or providing compliance reports, even before you have your audits, right? The platform has what we call compliance reports that, based on the activities you carry out right there on the Microsoft Purview portal, it provides this kind of report card for you. Like, these are areas you need to improve on. These are areas that you need to strengthen or work towards. And this is where you currently stand. It actually provides like an exact score in percentage and all. So, for example, now you can make use of Microsoft Purview to access your organization's adherence to ISO 27001 standards and identify areas for improvement, just like I explained. When you have all of your data consolidated and unified on Microsoft Purview, and then, okay, so I like the fact that you are trying to work towards adhering to ISO 27001 standards. Then when you check after like different guidance given to you, if you choose to follow it or not, when you check your compliance reports that the platform provides for you, you can see areas where you need to improve on, where you currently lie in terms of like strengths and all, how well you adhere to the standard too. It's not just limited to ISO 27001, by the way. It can be like any form of regulation and standard that you need to work with. Okay, so we have data loss prevention, just like we already explained when I was talking about data governance. Now, Microsoft Purview, being a data governance solution, helps you in protection of sensitive data, because you can set DLP policies and rules, right? Restricting, the set of people you can transfer data to, endpoints that you can open organization resources on, and these endpoints are devices, just on their devices, phones, laptops, tablets, and things like that you make use of. So, protection of sensitive data from being shared inappropriately. Data loss prevention policies monitor and restrict data transfer based on predefined rules. Let's say, I don't have the image here. Okay, let me just explain it to my mouth. So let's say, for instance, now you as an employee, you are trying to send a Word file to someone in HR department. Remember, I'm in finance department. So trying to send data to someone in HR department. If you get a kind of pop-up that tells you that you are not meant to share this particular data with people outside of your department, that is because there was a set of rules that was already predefined by the administrator that prevent unauthorized sharing of such data, right? Or worse still, if you are trying to on this, the way we have Microsoft Teams and the likes. So for an organization that makes use of Microsoft Purview or other security tools by Microsoft 365, by Microsoft, they actually read this organization chats, all of the chats you have on Microsoft Teams, and like they are not private the way you would have it with your personal chatting platforms or social media, right? So there are certain rules that the administrator can choose to set. Like, okay, probably in organizations chats, you're not meant to share what you are working on personally with people in unrelated departments. You're not meant to share private or personal data on Microsoft Teams for the organization. Any kind of rules that the organization deemed fit for them to work with, they can set it, and that is just it. Just like the example I put here now. Preventing unauthorized sharing of personal data via email or cloud storage. This also works for like chats now. If the organization implements the DLP policies, that is, like, just like I mentioned for everything before, they are not default settings that you just have automatically when you sign on to Microsoft Purview. The administrator still has to implement each of these things, right? Data loss prevention policies, they have to state it. That's why there is no one rule fits all for all organizations. You still have to make decisions based on your organization sector, what you have to work with, the kind of data you handle, what you consider to be sensitive data, and what you consider to be non-sensitive, right? So, data discovery and classification, data catalog, you can handle risk and compliance management on Purview. You can also set data loss prevention policies. And I have information protection. To implement, this is like to enforce the end goal that we've been talking about before, right? Confidentiality of data. It has to be like private. Now, organizations can choose to take steps to, different methods of encrypting data based on their own discretion and what they feel like is strong enough for them to make use of. But to enforce information protection, organizations usually have to like encrypt data to make sure it's accessible only by the authorized users. If you don't have the needed credentials for you to be able to access that data, you won't be allowed in, or you won't be allowed to open it. Now, this also helps in applying protection labels to sensitive data. And what do you mean by protection labels? When you're talking about things being highly confidential, top secrets, those kind of rankings, confidential, private, those like kind of protection labels type. So now, when you encrypt those kind of confidential documents, if you are not meant to access it, or if you don't have the access level to access such kind of data, there is no way you'll be able to gain access to it. If, for instance, now, one role will be totally unconcerned. Okay, yeah, a receptionist at an organization is trying to access is trying to access private data of the top level executives within the organization, like C-level executives. Such kind of data, if it was already labeled highly confidential, I'm talking of their personal details now, not anything related to the job, highly confidential, the receptionist will not be able to access such kind of data. Why? He or she is not authorized to make use of it for their job role. They are not meant to have the access level required to access highly confidential documents also. So rules like this can also be set on information protection. We call them SITs, sensitive information types, where you have to set each of those stuffs on Purview to limit access or to identify file restrictions. So when you see a particular file and then you check the tag, oh, it is highly confidential, it is private, you know how well to handle it, and you know how to handle the data, right? And you realize how important it is. So now these 5 things are not the only things that you can do with Microsoft Purview, but they cover the bulk of what you can do with it. For data discovery and classification, but you first have to identify your data and know what is sensitive and non-sensitive for your organization first, right? Data cataloging to make it easier for users to find and understand data assets quickly. Risk and compliance management to make it easier for you to automate the process of following regulations, understanding areas that you need for improvements using the compliance report. Now, data loss prevention policies too, and information protection, encryption of data, and setting of sensitive information types based on access levels within the organization. Okay, so before we address risk management and compliance in Microsoft Purview, we're almost rounding up already. Let me briefly think. Okay. MTN network is slow. So while that is loading, probably okay, we're here already. So compliance and compliance.microsoft.com that I dropped in the comment section. This is how you have the overview to be. Now, if you are an administrator, this compliance manager section is where you'd be able to like access different stuff that you can make use of. The subscription I'm on for this, which account? Oh, the subscription I'm on for this account is not an E5 subscription. So can be the administration portal from here. But if you work in an organization that makes use of all of Microsoft 365 apps, like you have your own Microsoft Teams, like paid community and things like that, you'd be able to access the Purview portal and deal with things like this. So this is what you see for non-administrator, right? You can see get rep permissions to start the trial by contacting your IT admin. You can also see the regulations that were preset, data protection measures that you have, standards that you are following, and things like that. That is the only thing you'll be able to see from this end. But for an administrator, you'll be able to set policies, you'll be able to set data law prevention policies, sensitive information types, risk assessment and management, and several other things to ensure compliance, data compliance within your organization. Now, if you are, how would I put it? If you are a full-time staff trying to transition to data security and governance, or probably an intern, IT student, NYSC graduate or something like that, anything like that. If you have an organization, no matter how small or big, that has the E5 subscription, for you to be sure they have the E5 subscription, you can check if you all have, how would I put, like assigned organization email addresses. You have a Microsoft Teams community, Microsoft Teams account for each person, like where you all come and talk and work on, right? Microsoft 365 applications also, like they are all paid and accessible using the organization email addresses. So from things like that, you can discuss with probably higher manager and things like that and explain that, oh, okay, so you've actually learned a great deal about this feature of Microsoft Purview and the likes, and then you would like to like test it out and stuff like that. Although you'd have to be, how would I put it, like granted access before you be able to access things like that. But if you're convincing enough, it just might work out. And like I explained earlier, it's not a field where you are expected to know everything practically already, because it is not realistic that way. You would have to work with merging different data sources together and things like that, monitoring them across different endpoints, sources, services, and so like that's the main reason why I can't even share like an enterprise level screen with this place, because it will be containing private details to organizations, right? Things that are meant to be private and things that are meant to be secure. So, but I'll share a learning resource at the end of the program, and this is 6 o'clock already. So let's just rush through now. Addressing risk management and compliance in Microsoft Purview. So Microsoft Purview integrates with Microsoft Defender and other security tools to provide a comprehensive threat intelligence and protection. It helps you conduct detailed risk assessment and helps align with standards such as ISO 27001. So I added this particular slide because I could see that in some of the questions we asked in the application, some people were like, how does Microsoft Purview align with risk management and compliance, right? For those who make use of Windows paid version, you'll notice that you have Windows Defender on your system. Windows Defender is a sub tool under Microsoft Defender. Like I explained earlier, Microsoft has a whole lot of tools, like array of tools. And Microsoft Defender is a different section. Microsoft Purview is a different one. You have Entra, you have Intune for endpoint, you have several types. Windows Defender is just a very small part of Microsoft Defender. Windows Defender comes free with your, yes, personal computer system, Windows subscription, and the likes. But for Microsoft Defender, the whole umbrella of it only comes with enterprise subscriptions. And it consists of tools that can help you with information security, threat intelligence, data monitoring. You have your use of, there's Microsoft Sentinel too that they use for security and event management, right? So Microsoft Purview now, it has to integrate Microsoft Defender for organizations to be able to conduct risk assessment and risk management. You can also carry that out on the Purview portal. It is like extensive, the capabilities of Microsoft Purview. We can't even talk about everything today. So it has various tools for managing compliance with various regulations, just like we've talked about before, and it ensures that organizations stay compliant and secure. So if you have a very good administrator for your organization, be rest assured that there is nothing like 100% security, but be rest assured that you would be much more compliant and secure, making use of this kind of like unified tool. You don't have to bother yourself with, oh, okay, so where do we have this data stored? How do I manage this particular one? How do I undo this particular one? When you just bring everything to one section, like Microsoft Purview, bring everything to Microsoft Purview, and all you have to do is start setting, okay, this is regulation we have to follow it, these are the policies that we have, sensitive information types, set all of those stuffs, and it just becomes kind of automated, right? For example, the use of AI, artificial intelligence in Purview, that's when I mentioned Microsoft Copilots. That's Microsoft AI assistants used for organizations. Unlike things like ChatGPT, Microsoft Copilot for M365 does not share organizations' data. Like they don't use it to train their model. So it's just like a kind of assistant for organizations within those softwares. The use of AI in Purview now, what it will do is assist you on things that would help you to automate your data classification and data governance more, without sharing that data with Microsoft themselves, without using it to train their models, without using it without sharing it with external organizations also. It's just there. Copilot for Purview is different from Copilot from Defender, Copilot for M365 applications that you make use of. I'm talking of things like Microsoft Word, Excel, and the likes now. So the use of AI assistant in Purview to automate data classification, risk assessment, and compliance checks helps in enhancing governance and compliance efforts. This automation of compliance checks is what you have with your compliance reports that gives a kind of compliance score telling you what you need to work on and where your current strengths are in areas of security. Now, managing data and its impact on governance. How do you manage data in Microsoft Purview, and how does it impact data governance generally? we already established the fact that Microsoft Purview offers different integrated tools, right, for managing data, and it ensures data security. It helps you in maintaining data governance. Now, it helps organizations implement data management strategies, and all of these strategies in turn enhance data security and compliance, which was like the whole aspect of governance, what governance is meant to cover, right? Ensuring that you comply with standards, ensuring that data is kept secure and things like that. So, for example, now, the use of data classification, like I mentioned, where you have to classify data and make use of protection labels, probably based on sensitive information types and the likes, when managing data lifecycle, helps you to ensure compliance with data security requirements. The end goal is matched. You have confidentiality available. Identity too is there. No one can change it if they cannot access it in the first place. And then accessibility too. It's only accessible to who is authorized to access it. That's with the use of protection labels that we have over here. Right. So it meets the data security requirements, confidentiality, integrity, and availability. I think this is all for my description on the Microsoft Purview platform. Yes. And then the last thing that we have to talk about is the Microsoft SA400 certification exam. So when I was saying you have to like just be well versed in understanding how different things work, what you can use to prove that, like have that proof that, okay, you have this knowledge is the Microsoft SA400 certification exam. It is, the full name is Microsoft Certified Information Protection and Compliance Administrator Associate. It is an associate level exam for Microsoft. So it is not a fundamental exam at all. I think it costs 165 yes, US dollars for us here from this region. And okay, let's just see what it's all about. So the certification learning modules, the modules are free. You can learn them without actually aiming to take the certification exam, like just to learn more about the Microsoft Purview platform, how Microsoft helps with data governance strategies and the likes, right? Although the modules are quite, I can't remember the exact number of modules, but generally they all try to cover information protection, data loss prevention, information governance, and compliance management. All of what we've discussed that Microsoft Purview is all about, all of what we discussed that it helps you with. And you can access the learn material. I mean, for the certification exam now at this URL. Come, let me just, oh, I can't copy it from here. The URL is quite long. Okay. So I'll just drop this in the chat now. All right. So for anyone that wants to check it out, that is it for SC400. Microsoft Certified Information Protection and Compliance Administrator Associate. It's basically like a learning path that makes you like explore and learn all about the Microsoft Purview platform. This is the page for it. So you can see self-learning and it is free actually. So learn how to protect information in your Microsoft 365 deployment. This course focuses on data lifecycle management and information protection and compliance within your organization. Just like I explained, it covers things from data loss prevention policies, sensitive information types, that's SITs, sensitivity label, data retention policies, Microsoft Purview message encryption, audits, e-discovery, and several other things. So yes, I did not mention this in the slide, but it should be like inferable from all of what I've explained. Microsoft Purview can help you work against insider risk, right? Because when access is limited and nobody and non-repudiation, sorry, non-repudiation is non-repudiation is made possible with the use of like accountability features, who handled what, when was what handled, and things like that. Insider risk you can say it like it's very much reduced, right? And this is the course syllabus, all of the learning parts for DSA 400. Basically, if you want to learn about Microsoft Purview, whether you are looking to learn take the certification exam or not, you can just come here just to learn about it. How to implement information protection in it, how to implement data loss prevention, data lifecycle and records management, and yeah, this is all of it. You can check it out later, your own free time. Okay. Where's my okay, yes. So the certification modules cover okay, how to configure DLP policies, how to cover implementing retention. Oh wow, this is 10 minutes past 6 already. Not to keep everybody waiting for too long. So that is all about the overview of data governance and Microsoft's data governance solution tool, that's Purview. So if you have any questions, they can come in now. Then after the questions, we just round up the session. Hello, any questions? How many people do we even have
Hi,
on?
good evening. Thank you very much.
Okay, good evening.
Yes, thank you very much for the session. Um, okay, so I have two questions. Firstly, um, is this solution used a lot here in Nigeria? I don't know. Um, is it like
Yes,
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 it is.
actually.
Okay. All right, thank you. Then secondly, there's absolutely no way that I can practice, that we can practice, using Microsoft Purview unless, we have that enterprise um account, right? There's no way that
Yes,
we can.
or if
No,
you
okay,
have a developer's account.
okay, the developers.
Yes,
Okay,
that developer's account was widely used by a lot of people to access M365 applications, like for years. I think they just stopped it earlier this year or thereabout. But the thing is, even if you don't have developer's account, if you have someone that has it, whether they are in the security field or not,
a lot. Okay,
so
does
yes,
that
they
mean?
can create a tenant for you and you make use of it. It does not affect
Okay,
their own
yeah,
work and it does not affect your own.
okay. All
Yes.
right, thank you very much. Yeah.
Yes, you're welcome. Yes, and also for the companies aspect that you asked, that was why I specifically mentioned that companies that usually make use of these things, banks majorly. Then after banks, you have oil companies, energy companies in Nigeria, Chevron, Seplat, and things like that. And it makes it easier for you to be able to get into those kind of these things because you've niched down to be a
You have
solution provider for
yeah,
them.
yeah, you have knowledge
Yes.
about scrum. Yeah.
Uh-huh. So, okay, there's a question in the chat. Is it worth it to acquire a certification in this? Oh, no, I won't advise that you move on to the certification after, before like practicing it and all. This is what I can advise that you do. Take the lessons in the learning part, like learn it and be able to, okay, prove that you actually know about these things and things like that. For those who are working full time already, you can you can discuss with like those maybe your HR or something, I don't know, whoever it is that handles recruitment and things like that, and let them know how you can help with things like this. Then if your organization is willing to give you a try for you to actually go on with it, they can go on to sponsor the certification exam for you. Or if you are very sure that okay, you are so good at it, you want to try it out. Another thing, the learning path, it actually has some labs that you can work on depending on the work you have to make use of. They call it these temporary sandboxes. So when you are working in when you are learning a particular module that has to do with you learning something practical, Microsoft Learn provides you with this short-term Microsoft Learn provides you with this short-term lab usage specifically for that aspect that you are working with, right? So for things like that, you can just like maybe screen record it and share it online that, oh, you just did something like this, right? And you just learned things like this. So by then, when people know that, oh, okay, you are learning something like this, and it is a specific thing that not much people are into it yet. So they just kind of like give you this chance to make use of it. I hope that answered your question, Wachuku. So what else? Let me even see if we have enough people to qualify for LinkedIn. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I did not prepare a listening session. Maybe I'll use the randomizer. Okay, so if you did not register for the event and you just joined via link, please drop your email in the comment section. There is actually a LinkedIn premium subscription attached to the event. So I'll just use a kind of randomizer to get maybe like 3 or okay, if someone who is a data protection officer role, yes, it still applies to know it. Yes. It's even the easiest way to transition from. Okay, if you have your hand raised and you want to talk, you can unmute and speak. There is no problem at all.
Yeah, hello, good evening.
Good evening.
Yeah, thanks for this lecture. I'm very grateful. Yeah. Okay, yeah, I want to ask. You talked about uh, encryption usage in Purview. So I want to know
Yes.
for you to encrypt data,
Yes.
do you have to be a specialist or something like a penetration tester, or just
Oh,
anybody who is vast in Purview can use it? That
no,
encryption
no, no.
aspect of Purview.
It's not something as technical as that. No. When you're talking about encryption in Purview, it's not the ethical arcane aspect where you have to work with SHF 256 and stuff like that. So yeah, encryption has to do with like how well you limit access to it, and if people have to make use of passwords to log in, that's just it. Like a particular resource now, let's say a file, or for instance, this event, the recording will be available. But if I don't want everybody to access the recording, I can choose to encrypt it by ensuring that if they don't have this particular passcode or this particular username and password, they will not be able to listen to the recording or access the recording. That's the kind of encryption we are talking about here, not dealing with hashes and things like that. Did I answer your question, Sammy?
Yes, that's very okay. Thank you very much.
Okay. All right. So does anyone else have any further questions?
Okay, so my question is, good evening.
Good evening.
Well done. So my question is, this Microsoft Purview, I tried it within my organization. Before now,
Okay.
I've heard of it, and I saw this, and I had to join too. So I've tried it, but I I noticed that I tend to begin to segment the rules and policy, considering I have HR, I have finance. There are some documents I want to place as confidential for finance and so on.
Okay.
But I notice when I deploy them, they tend to, if I've deployed one for HR or finance, instead of only affecting finance or taking effect on finance, it takes effect on other, maybe if I say I did this on finance, it takes effect on HR and maybe legal team. So my question is, does it have to do with my Active Directory? If I have my Active Directory in the Azure environment, what is the integration process, or how does it stand? Do I need to create another on this compliance tenant also?
Okay. So you cannot use that except you created Purview as a resource under Azure. Then you have to configure it differently because you have to come in as an administrator specifically on Purview, not just from Azure's end. Azure has to do with the cloud, then Purview has to do with the security only, like majorly. And it's not all the time that you see both roles interlapping with each other. So it has to come in differently, not how would I put it? Like not the same roles from Azure. Hello? Did you
So I
get
didn't really get. Do you mean I need to create another group afresh, or I didn't really get it?
Okay, no. I asked first that, okay, did you create the Purview as a resource under Azure, or did you just like move on to activate the compliance portal separately?
No, I just activated it separately on the compliance portal.
Okay, then that should not be an issue at all. And you included your Azure services under data sources, right? The whole Active Directory and all.
So that could be what maybe what you're just saying now, maybe the one points I'm missing. So if possible, you have the
Oh,
material, you can send on the link on the chat so that I just review the material and go through the whole process again.
okay. So the thing is, for specific for specific stuff like that related to Azure, you can usually find them on Microsoft blog platforms. But I have to carry out a specific search, like for that aspect. I don't know if you understand what I'm trying to say. Like, let me find an example. See the way I have, oh, my screen. I'm no longer sharing my screen. Let me share my screen and show you. I need to stop recording first. Okay. All right. Okay, so see the way we have this blog aspect on Microsoft Learn. You know, this is different from the link I sent earlier. Hello, can you see this?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, so this is what I mean that, so for the specific issue you are having, I cannot like pinpoint it immediately now on the ground, but what I can do is send this link to you. Then you can now choose to read through each of the guidelines that you have here. It walks you through step by step of what you can do. Would that work for you too? Me sending this link.
Yes, that would definitely work. Yes, yes.
All right. Okay then. So I'll just send a random one. Then you remember to come to this left-hand side and try to navigate through.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome. So check the chats. I just sent the link. Okay, so do we have any other questions? We are 20 minutes past end time. Okay, no other question. Thank you for joining, everyone. You can leave the call now. Thank you. I hope you learned a lot today.
Sorry, before you leave, sorry, you were saying
Okay.
something about LinkedIn.
Okay, oh yes. I was supposed to set up a Kahoot question section, but I totally forgot, and now time has gone. So I said if there are people who will be interested in having LinkedIn Premium and you registered, you did not register for the event, but you are here in the chat, like you should drop your email address in the chat. So it will be easy for me when I want to set up the randomizer to pick those who will be selected. Okay, so I guess everyone registered then. No problem. So since we can no longer use Kahoot question section to select, I would use a randomizer, and whatever top 3 names that we have that pops up, I would reach out to you via email. Thank you very much for joining. I would end the webinar now.
Thank you.